man. Let's talk about a little bit about personal finance management, because that's one of the things that I had to get in order before I got my business in order. A lot of times we get into business and we're looking at business credit, and we don't want to get our personal PG, our personal guarantee to it. And there's some benefits to that and some drawbacks. And I know a lot of times when I first started, I wanted to get this business credit because my personal credit was messed up. And I didn't want to have to attach my personal name to it because I thought I could just slide on up using business credit. There's some truth to it, and there's some fallacies inside of that same story that I learned along the way. And I want to just go over and tell them what was real and give a realistic expectation of where we are. Now, I'm a little further along down the way now, but where I started from is where we should start from, right? So this live here, again, we'll be coming on every Tuesday night at 7 Central. I will be bringing other guests on to go live, and we'll be doing different topics. Again, we actually setting up for my podcast coming out, but we're not going to talk too much about that. We're going to stay focused on the live for the night, and we're going to stay on personal finances, right? Let's get back on the personal finances. So personal finances is something that I said we need to go ahead and get it in order. Now, when I first started this whole journey, I wasn't making much. I was making about $20 a month, and they was taking half of my finances. They was taking half, and I was only making $10. So inside of that, I had to start learning and studying principles that got me to where I can invest in my business. First thing that I studied inside of personal finance is that you want to set up a goal to have you $1,000 emergency. That's the first goal that I think that everybody should start. I started my kids with that goal, and they invested in real estate now. My two oldest ones are invested in real estate. But I wanted to get $1,000, man. A lot of times I talk to people and they don't even have $1,000 saved. Now, as you start to journey off into business, you start to pull some of that resources to, get things going. Now, when I started my journey, I wanted to make sure that I kept a record, right? We want to make sure we're keeping a record. So a lot of times, again, we get into something that we don't keep a record. So I'll bring up one of these things to the stage here. I want to show one of my records that I kept along the way when I was doing my first business that was actually helping me get to where I had money to do this. If you can see, this is on paper, and you can see that I had a net of $631.30, and I had some hygiene, and I had some accounts receivables there that was $104, and we had some expenses that was $24.32. So see, to come up when you don't have a lot, you have to make sure that you manage in what you have. What you don't manage will manage you. And so I want to make sure that I took the time out to go show where I come from as far as the business side of it and what I was putting into practice. We got our net right there. We went plus of $49 right there that 1 week. And this week was a great week. And I am looking forward to selling my business to old Sammy Whammy when I leave. So most likely I had the mindset of selling my business to somebody when I left, and capitalizing on the place that I was in. But I had built a business to where it was profitable, and again, I could sell it to somebody else when I left, right? So I'll talk about some of the processes that you do put in place to manage your personal finances so you can get in business. One thing I would like to share with somebody is that we have apps that will actually help you do this. One of the apps that I started with Digit. When I started off, I wanted to make sure that I had a place that I had multiple streams of income. Well, I didn't have multiple streams of income when I started off, but I wanted them to be deposited somewhere. So I set up multiple bank accounts. And as I started talking to more entrepreneurs, I see that some of them on their personal side only have 2 bank accounts. They have a checking and a savings. And I think that's setting yourself up for failure, because we want to go to where we have multiple places to deposit money from. And I know you're thinking like, hey, I ain't got no money right now. Where I'm going to put multiple this? Well, if you set it, it'll start to accumulate. And what I mean by that is when we go back to looking at this, if you look at this paper, where this is just paper. If we look at the cash, I had a cash right there, right? You see cash and you see accounts receivables. You see I had a hygiene and inventory, right? And expenses. So all of those different things right there, as I'm labeling them, also was some of the accounts that I kept up on paper. So when I started to get my $1,000 emergency fund, I started to keep money in cash, or I started to send it home to someone that had a PayPal card for me. And I started to accumulate money. I started to send it home at a certain time so I can have $1,000. But you want to make sure that you have multiple accounts, not just 2. If you have 2, just a checking and a savings, I definitely think that you would get rid of that. As I tell people all the time, we want to label those accounts, right? We want to label them personal, investment, savings, and giving. Now, giving is tithing. You want to give off some money, but you want to make sure that you're giving and your personal account is at the same bank. Now, the way that you structure this also for your personal finances is amazing because it can help you safeguard yourself from those times that you're spending in the wrong way, right? Ill-advised spending. So we have an account that's a savings and a checking account, right? Savings and a checking account at one bank. We call it Bank A. You got a savings and a checking. Now, with that savings and a checking, you want to connect those. And so that way, when you want to give somebody, you can actually give it from your giving account. You can transfer the money from your savings account into your checking and say, hey, man, here. And then if you don't have nothing over in that account, you ain't got it to give. So that's your giving account. You don't have it to give. And you're just working and living off of your personal account. Now, the other two accounts, I advise to put in two different banks. You put one inside of a savings account and you call it an investment account. Now, it's just a regular savings account, but you're setting it up to invest in your future. Whether it be a trip that you need to go on for educational learning, you want to invest in real estate. That's what I did with my investment. Or you want to invest in stocks. Again, it's just a savings account that we attach the name investment to, and we put it at another bank, right? And then you want a savings account. Now, those are the savings account for what we want, like cars. They want in the car. Some of us want to go on trips, right? Now, if you got an investment account that's for your educational, then your savings account you got for the trip, right? So you want to make sure you have your money segmented in those separate accounts at the minimum and set them up at different banks. Now, we can go on further and further as I continue to teach and as I continue to go on and deliver my content on why the separate banks make sense. But just case in point, you being out, and a lot of us may be having old proclivities. We have old things that we was doing back in the day. And some of us are drinking, right? Some of us go out and like to have fun. And we have partners that's around and we still hang on to some of them old habits. When you get out in those circumstances, if you have money in another account, you can no longer transfer that money and keep the party going. Well, that's just what I used to do, man. I used to be in the club or be out drinking with my cousins and my family, them, and I wanted to have a good time, man. And I'm making the most money out of everybody, so I might not have it to give, so to speak, but it's not in my savings account. I take it away from my other account and transfer it over there, or either spend all that money and transfer some money over and pay a bill with it. But we ain't finna stop the party tonight. So what that did by me having bank accounts in other bank accounts, just for me, it saved me on investing in my real estate because I didn't have access to all of it. Yes, it was mine, and yes, I could go get it, but I had to drive to go get it, and I didn't feel like driving because by the time I got there, I didn't need it anyway. So all I needed some quick cash, and a lot of times we have too many access with cash. We have multiple debit cards. So dealing with different banks, I had multiple debit cards, and I kept them up in the safe. I don't have two couple business. I take one debit card, one credit card, and one business card. You know what I mean? And that's it. Some of those tips I get into more advanced as I go on, but I just wanted to touch the basis on just setting up a financial footing.